Welcome everyone to our Wulong primer. Time to get a little crazy. As with our other primers, this video should give you a good quick rundown on the character to jumpstart your learning and get you playing some matches. We will keep the technical lingo to a minimum, but you should still have some knowledge on basic standardized Tekken terms, especially notations and terms for various game mechanics. In other words, this guide is meant for beginners, but you should already know a little bit about the game, just not necessarily the character. If you are brand new to Tekken, check out the resource links in the video description below. I've included several, including a system basics guide that operates as a tutorial for the whole game since Tekken doesn't really have that built in. To me, I think it's incredibly important to go over that before trying to tackle character specific guides. But enough of all that, let's begin. Note that Lei has a gigantic move list, and we're only going to touch a small portion of it with a focus on stances. First, a quick helpful tip on the animal stances. Think of them as a network with a central part and two nodes. On the left side, you have dragon and tiger connected to one another. Dragon to tiger is sidestep left, tiger to dragon is sidestep right, and on the right node is crane and panther. Crane to panther being sidestep left, panther to crane, sidestep right. The central part of your network is snake, so sidestep left will take you to dragon and your left side nodes, and sidestep right to panther and your right side nodes. But snake is central because all other stances can make their way back to it. Sidestep left if you're in tiger and panther, sidestep right if you're in crane and dragon, and up or down 2+3 from phoenix. This is why snake is so common. If you ever get lost, you can often find your way back to it. Furthermore, you'll note that switching between stances gives you large side steps, which benefits your pressure into the new stance. Managing stances is easily the biggest hurdle for new players, so to help, we're going to talk about each by their function. So for this offense section, we're going to talk about the stances that have the best aggression. That in mind, panther, tiger, and back turn all have the same feel to them. You have scary low threats, a bevy of mids, and evasive threats, and many of your tools are extremely quick. Tiger is considered by many to be the best stance overall. Most players have seen Tiger 4, which is risky on block but has great range, crushes highs, on top of being a stupidly fast launcher. Very simple to use and amazingly annoying. Tiger 2-2 is normally the mid threat since it's a quick launch string, safe on block but the second hit can be ducked. However, you can delay it and the second hit still launches on counter hit, so it's scary for your opponent to try to punish the first hit, which is punishable on block by itself. Otherwise, Tiger 1 is a good safe mid to keep up pressure. Tiger 3 is another mid, low crushes and can splat, really useful against crouch jabs. You can block in Tiger and it has a couple auto blocks since it'll auto block lows early on in a transition and it auto blocks mid high if you're moving forward. Panther is the same kind of deal. One slide 2 is your risky low threat, insanely fast. Just doing pan 1 is fine too if you just want to poke low instead of going super risky. Pan 3 is another low alternative with the option to go to Phoenix by pressing back. Pan 2 is your primary mid, a quick launcher and not too risky on block. If you just want to poke, the Pan 4 string is good too. Pan has no block, but it does evade highs naturally and has an auto low parry when you walk forward. It's also known for its insane forward dash, so getting in someone's face quickly is no problem. Back turn is a bit quirky, but back turn options are extremely fast since of course you can't block. Back turn 3, down 2, and down 3 are all really good interrupts. Back turn up forward 4 is your quickest mid launch option and will beat lows. Back turn down 2 and back turn down 4 are your primary lows, the former being an annoying poke that can launch on counter hit. The latter is riskier but can yield a launch on normal hit when you're close. Back turn 4 is usually the go-to mid since it'll keep you in back turn. It's not safe per se, but has a few follow-ups, some of which can launch, so just finish the string if they're not respecting it. Looping back turn down 1 and back turn 4 is a pretty common tactic. We'll save neutral talk for later, so we'll end offense there and move on to defense and utility. For defense and utility, you have everything else. So Dragon, Snake, Drunken, Crane, and Phoenix. We're going to skip the laydown stuff because that's just getting too deep for a primer. Dragon is usually restricted to hunting for a couple moves. Dragon 4 is your money maker. It's as fast as a regular jab and has tons of string variations from it. It does start high, but it hits incredibly hard, especially on counter hits since Dragon 4-1-2-3 is a combo and does basically juggle damage. You can also do this string from neutral as forward neutral 4, so it's a solid tool there too. Dragon 2 is the other big threat. It's a fairly quick mid, gives advantage on block, knockdown splat on hit, and a launch on counter hit. Also has a tendency to go under some highs, jabs in particular, which is useful for people trying to jab out of pressure. Drunken is also pretty straightforward. Movement looks weird of course, but you can block like normal. Lots of mids to choose from. Drunk 1 is just a tad unsafe, but gives a knockdown splat on hit. Drunk 2 is a safe poke with the option to go back turn. There's a second hit that's really good as well, but can be ducked. Drunk back 1+2 is a fairly fast, chunky mid launcher, unparryable, huge huge active window, and also now his wall push, so solid on block too. Drunk 4 is a more traditional mid launcher, so a bit unsafe on block, but fairly quick for what it is. For lows, Drunken 3 is the main one. 3-1+2 is a fairly strong natural combo, and if you want to try for a launch, you have 3-2, but it only combos on counter hit. The goal with Drunken though is to use the quirky movement to bait someone into a stupid decision. Crane is usually reserved for wake up situations like at the wall. The common mix is between Crane 1 and 4. They're not particularly fast, but they are roughly the same speed, one being a knockdown mid that also gives advantage on block, the other being a risky knockdown low. If you just want to poke, Crane 3 is a safe mid poke with some solid string options if you want to get riskier. And I recommend skipping Phoenix at first as well because it has limited mix-up options and is tough to use just in general. So that leaves us just with Snake, probably the most used of his stances. You can block like normal and the forward dash evades highs. Snake 1 is your jab and the full string is a counter hit combo. 1-2-1-2 is more mix heavy since you can go to Panther after the third hit. Snake 2 and 2-2 can take you to Dragon. Snake 1+2 and 3 are good anti-button moves, the former being a sway back and the latter being a low crush. Snake 4-1 is your low threat. It does solid damage, gives pretty sizable advantage on hit, and can go to Tiger by holding forward. If you want to stay in Snake, just do Snake 4. So Snake doesn't focus on one thing, instead it works to poke a little bit and move you to another stance that you want. For more general defense, note that 1-1 forward is a jab punish that will take you to Snake and is a common entry to that stance. Forward 2-4 is another quick combo that'll go back turn, just be aware of the duck risk. While standing 3 is a fantastic mid. It's not safe, but it's as fast as a jab and hits like a truck. Definitely best in class kind of punisher. Down forward 2 is a fast mid launcher, his version of the generic down forward 2, and just as good, just a different animation. He has a hop kick with up forward 4, so a solid low crush there as well. He also has a bunch of counter hit tools. 1+2 and standing 4 are good quick counter hit launchers, although note his counter hit 4 juggle can be a bit rough, especially on small characters. 1+2 is just a little riskier since it goes to back turn, so you sometimes have to commit to the follow-ups for additional cover. Forward 4-2 is a high crushing counter hit launch string, safe on block, and then of course you have a variety of counter hit options from stances, since being weird and evasive is kind of a main purpose for those. Really play around with moves you like because you'll often find some kind of evasive or counter property to it somewhere. For this final section, we're going to focus on neutral and transition, since the question at this point is probably going to be, how do I use all this crap? The short answer to that is however you want. There are a lot of different ways to play Lei, and it's really up to you and which stances you like the most. For instance, if you really want to play him stance-less, you absolutely can. He has a normal jab combo, safe basic launch tools like down forward 2, basic pokes like down forward 1, down 3, down back 3, and down 4, a bevy of counter hit tools we already mentioned, a scary knockdown low threat with down back 4-4, and some great whiff punish tools like forward 3, which we haven't mentioned yet, but is awesome and something you should have locked and loaded at all times. He even has some decent pressure tools like forward 1+2 and running 1, and plenty of strings that you can play timing games with. But even if you like to play stance heavy, there will be times you're forced to play neutral, so knowing these tools is still important. But to figure out how best to transition to stances and develop a general flow with those, I recommend a 3-step approach. First, decide what kind of playstyle you want to primarily use, so aggressive, defensive, etc., and use the info we already went over to note which stances fit that style. Second, go through the move list and make note of any move you like that has transitions to the stances that fit your playstyle. For example, if you want to maintain a really aggressive playstyle, try to use moves like forward neutral 1-2-1 up or down for Panther, down forward 1+2 forward, and sidestep 1 forward for Tiger, sidestep 2 back, and forward neutral 3 for back turn, and so on. Third, do this same thing again, but look at moves from within stances. This is the next layer of your game plan to get you to the stance you want. For instance, Snake 4-1 is super good and takes you to Tiger. Now that you know that, loop back to step 2 and find ways to get to Snake, like down 4 down or down back 4 down. By doing this, you've essentially made a flowchart. You have your goal, which is to get to a specific stance, then you look at ways to get there from neutral and from stances. Since this requires that you use a holistic view, it forces you to incorporate your whole move list into your game plan. If you want an easy transition pick though, note that all of his animal stances except Phoenix can be done from his Razor Rush string, one of the reasons that string is so good. So really, I would recommend starting with things that look cool and fun to you, then build from there using these steps. Experiment with as much as you can, and eventually you'll find moves you're most comfortable with, and you'll naturally build a style all your own. As usual, we'll skip combo talk, but there is a link in the description below for basic juggles. However, we'll actually end with a quick note on Lei's rage drives. He doesn't have one from neutral, instead he has one in each of the animal stances. They're easy to remember because they all have the same input, 1+4, and you'll notice that they're just better versions of certain stance moves, so they should be pretty easy to get a handle on. This brings us to the end of our primer. I'll issue a warning that Lei is of course not an incredibly easy character to learn, but he has a lot of solid tools and the inherent advantage of having a ton of moves, so trying to throw as much out there as possible to confuse your opponent is a wise idea. That said, you'll have to start small and just understand that it'll be a lengthier learning curve than most other characters. Mentally prepare yourself for those losses as you get used to him, but don't give up. So with that, I'm hoping this information was succinct and helpful for getting a jump on the character, but feedback is always welcome. Be mindful that in-depth discussions for game plans and move attributes will be saved for intermediate guides, although since we have the more robust basics guides already for Tekken 7, true intermediate guides will be something to look out for with Tekken 8. Lastly, big thanks to our patrons. You guys are the best and that support means more than you know, but to everyone, stay safe and we'll see you next time.